Okay, so it's good to see everybody today, and welcome back from summer. And as we hit the ground running, uh, getting ready for the high holidays, the month of Elul, always for pulpit rabbis the most difficult month of the year, and especially those pulpit rabbis where being on the bima and writing sermons doesn't come naturally, and whatever. So,
You do a
um,
good job, though.
well, I didn't say it for that, but I appreciate it, Barbara. But anyway, it's just this time of year is just, it's spiritually hard. So I want to say also that I have to end class early today because I have to leave to get my parents for a regular doctor's appointment. So we're going to end at like 10:10, and the blessing for study, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekitzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So
Amen.
I'm going to mute all, and you know the drill. In case you want to make a comment, ask a question, always feel free to unmute at any time. So we left off back in May at chapter 10. So we're in 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 9 is what we're supposed to pick up with. So what I want to do before we pick up is to remind ourselves where we are. So if you want to follow along in ancient Israel, let me read the English translation there and also the commentary below the line. So ancient Israel, chapter 10 of 1 Samuel, page 288. 288 in the ancient Israel. And Samuel took the cruse of oil and poured it over his head. So Samuel's anointing Saul to be the first king of Israel. Samuel took the cruse of oil, poured it over his head, and kissed him, and he said, now I just as an aside, I wonder what kissing looked like. Like, in other words, what kind of kiss was that? And I have no idea, and I wonder if there's actually a record of what kissing might have looked like that is referred to. Well, we know in Genesis that Esau went to kiss Jacob on his neck. So is that the kissing? Or is it cheek kissing? Is it mouth? Is it top of the head? Don't know. Just curious. Kissed him, and he said, has not the Lord anointed you over his inheritance as prince? When you go away from me today, you shall find two men by Rachel's tomb in the region of Benjamin at Zelzah, and they will say to you, the asses that you went off to seek have been found, and look, your father has put aside the matter of the asses and is worrying about you, saying, what shall I do about my son? So we have to remember back in chapter 9 that Saul's father was looking for him, and there was some incident with these men and their donkeys. So Samuel is just combining that into this kind of prophetic kind of mission that Saul is supposed to be going on. And you shall slip onward, we're on 289, top line, and you shall slip onward from there, and you shall come to the terebinth of Tavor, and there 3 men will find you who are going up to God at Bethel, one bearing 3 kids, and one bearing 3 loaves of bread, and one bearing a jug of wine. And they will greet you and give you 2 loaves of bread, and you shall take from their hand. Now, when I read this a little while ago, just to remind myself, of where we're at before reading this now. The three people bearing gifts smacks of, the three wise men coming to Bethlehem to greet the newborn Jesus. So is this a biblical motif? Or did that story of the three wise men meeting Jesus come from this story? I mean, this story clearly, chronologically, comes first before the Jesus story. So
you also had the three angels visiting
yes,
Abraham
that's
in
right.
the
Three
Lot
angels
story.
visiting Abraham to let him know about the birth of Isaac. So yes, so it's just interesting to me that biblical stories repeat themselves as a motif, like someone meeting his intended bride at the well, stories of barren women, etc., etc. So, just another example of three people coming to greet what is here the newly anointed king. Afterward, verse 5, you shall come to Givat Elohim, where the Philistine prefect is. And as you come into town there, you shall encounter a band of prophets coming down from the high place, preceded by lute and drum and flute and lyre, and they will be speaking in ecstasy. And the Spirit of the Lord shall seize you, and you shall go into ecstasy with them, and you shall turn into another man. And when these signs come upon you, now again, we'll see what the commentary says about this. We don't know much about these bands of prophets, and we don't know much about speaking in ecstasy. We really don't know about that. Who's in charge of these prophet schools? Are they mandated by God? That is, do these prophets speak in God's name? They must, because Samuel is referring to them and saying that now that Saul is going to become one of them. So it just begs the question also that we'll see now from Saul through the rest of the kings of Israel. What is their role in as leader of the people? Is their role purely political? Is it religious? Is it prophetic? It all depends on who the king is. Okay?
And didn't you also have like those prophets or a band of prophets during Moses' time? One time, and
Um,
somebody said to him, "Oh, yeah, there are these other prophets."
yes, right. So there are two others prophesying in the camp, Eldad and Medad. And that's in the book of Numbers. And Moses says to Joshua, don't worry about them. If only everybody would prophesy in God's name. So, so we don't know either about them. And like, in other words, there were 70 people chosen to be the elders, representative of the people. And then there were two extra, Eldad and Medad. So who they were, what does it mean that they're prophesying? Were they prophesying against God? Were they prophesying in support of Moses? Unclear. So there's not much that can provide more clarity on this matter. Okay, verse 7, and when these signs come upon you, do what your hand finds to do, for God is with you. And you shall go down before me to Gilgal, and look, I shall be coming down to you to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice well-being sacrifices. Okay, so this is where we left off last time. Let's look below the line, back on page 288. Anointment is the biblical ritual of conferring kingship, like coronation in later European tradition. Samuel carries out this act secretly on the outskirts of the town, conferring on Saul, in keeping with the term God has used, the title Nagid, prince, rather than Melech, or king. Okay, so we'll see whether David is going to be called Nagid, or any other kings of Israel are going to be called Nagid. When you go away from me today, this elaborate set of instructions and predictions is, as Robert Polzin has argued, a strategy for asserting continued control over the man Samuel has just anointed. Every predictive step manifests Samuel's superior knowledge as prophet, and all the instructions reduce the new king to Samuel's puppet. All right, so we'll see from now through the rest of Saul's life the relationship between Saul and Samuel. Rachel's tomb. The burial site of the mother of Benjamin, the eponymous founder of the tribe, underscores Saul's own tribal affiliation. At Zelzah, the otherwise unattested name may not be a place name, but an error in transcription in the Masoretic text. Your father has put aside the matter of the asses and is worrying about you. According to the fixed procedure of verbal recycling in biblical narrative, the predicted words of the two men are nearly identical with Saul's first words to his servant. One should note that in a scenario Samuel lays out for him, Saul has no opportunity to respond to his father's concern for his absence. On the contrary, his new regal obligations rush him onward toward a daunting rite of initiation. 289 below the line, slip onward. The Hebrew word chalaf suggests passing through a medium and may well indicate the clandestine nature of Saul's movements. The Terebinth of Tabor, evidently a cultic site. 3 men, 3 kids, 3 loaves of bread. The triple 3 is a folk tale pattern. It also manifests a mysterious design clearly grasped by Samuel, who enunciates this whole prediction, and into which Saul is thrust unwitting. The 3 men bear meat, or animals that can be turned into meat, bread and wine, the 3 symbolic staffs of life. They will offer Saul the primary of the 3, bread, in counterpoint to the worthless fellows at the end of the episode who give the new king no tribute. Givat Elohim, the name means hill of God, but it would seem to be the same as the Giv'ah of Judges 19, in which the Benjaminites perpetrate a lethal gang rape, and is also known as Givat Benjamin and Givat Saul. The Philistine prefect, the glancing reference to a Philistine garrison deep within Benjaminite territory, is still another indication of the Philistines' military ascendancy. That might be another reason for keeping the anointment secret, at least until the new king can consolidate military force around him. The Masoretic text has a plural, prefects, but 3 different ancient translations reflect a singular. A band of prophets, these are professional ecstatics who would whip themselves into frenzy with the insistent rhythms of the musical instruments mentioned, a phenomenon familiar in enthusiastic religious sects worldwide, and then would prophesy, become caught up in ecstatic behavior, which could involve glossolalia, speaking in tongues, dancing, writhing, and the like. The chief connection between these figures and the later literary prophets is the idea that both are involuntarily inhabited by an overpowering divine spirit. Right, so in other words, what altar means is we're used to prophets who have books. That is, they speak in God's name and speak to the people. So all the books of the Bible that are named for prophets, they are people who speak in what we would call a normal way. So what we have here in Samuel is a reference to some earlier version of what prophets were, these ecstatics, and that what the transition was, and there are probably scholarly articles written about these early prophet schools and the transition from them to the prophets in the Bible. So that's beyond my pay grade. I haven't read about that. I don't know. But if you Google Jewish or biblical or Israelite ecstatic prophets, yeah, I'm sure a variety of articles will come up. Lute, the Hebrew word for this instrument, navel, is identical with the word for jug used at the end of verse 3. The homonymity may be explained by a perceived lyre shape in the jug. It is a fairly common procedure in biblical narrative to link segments in immediate sequence by using this sort of pun as a linchpin. Here it has the effect of intimating an uncanny link between the first and second stages of the script Samuel is designing for Saul. 290, you shall turn into another man. The drastic nature of this process is surely meant by Samuel to be startling. Nothing less will do in order to transform this diffident farmer's son into a king than to be devastated by the divine spirit, violently compelled to radical metamorphosis. This whole story of Saul among the prophets is repeated with very significant changes in chapter 19 near the end of his torturous career. As we shall have occasion to see, the seeming repetition, far from being a regrettable doublet produced in redaction, is entirely purposeful. The same ideological tale is rotated 180 degrees to show us first Saul being invested with the Spirit and with the monarchy, and then divested of the monarchy by the Spirit. So he'll remind us when we get to chapter 19 about the reverse of this process. 7, do what your hand finds. The biblical idiom means to do whatever is within your power. And 8, you shall go down before me to Gilgal. 7 days shall you wait. The third stage in the set of predictions, instructions that Samuel announces to Saul is in fact not carried out until much later. Saul's divergence from the prophet's script adumbrates his further failures of obedience in relation to Samuel. Robert Polzin has made the shrewd argument that the unfulfilled prediction also reflects Samuel's failure as a prophet, and that he has actually placed Saul in a double bind by telling him that he may do whatever he wants because God is with him, and yet has paradoxically commanded strict royal dependence upon prophetic direction. Samuel, in other words, seems to want both a king and a puppet. Okay, so again, to keep in mind this relationship between Samuel and Saul, does Saul have any sense of independence, or is Saul dependent on Samuel's directions?
Jonah?
Yes, Barry.
So I remember from last spring, we were talking about the origins of how Samuel became a prophet. I can't remember what were the signs that made him pick Saul. Was there something that?
I think. Well, we have to look at a
because the rest of the story implies that it was a big mistake. That
right. It turns out to be, but the beginning of chapter 9 introduces us to Saul. Yeah, so we'd have to read chapter 9 again. So just check back to chapter 9 to see how it is that Saul got to be chosen.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, was there something monumental, or was it just a? Yeah,
no, they just well, it seems like he was just a random guy. Now he's tall, taller than average. So he's not a random person. He's a random tall person from the tribe of Benjamin. So,
I mean, my memory was that it was a somewhat arbitrary choice.
But again, I'll leave it up to everybody to look back on their own. Okay, so let's pick up from chapter 10, verse 9, page 54 in our text. V'haya kehafnoto shichmo lalechet me'im Shmuel, vayahafoch lo Elohim lev acher, vayavo'u kol ha'otot ha'ele bayom hahu. So when he turned his shoulder to go from Samuel, God turned over or transformed his heart into another heart, or God gave him another heart, as it says here. And all the signs of these signs came true on that day, or came to pass that day. 10, page 55. Vayavo'u sham hagiv'ata, vehine chevel nevi'im likrato, vatitzlach alav ruach Elohim, vayitnabe betocham. So they came to Giv'ah, and there was a band of prophets coming to greet him. And the Spirit of God came upon him. Now it says came mightily upon him. Not sure that titzlach means mightily upon. In modern Hebrew, titzlach is to succeed. That is to be able to accomplish a task, to succeed. So the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them, or he acted as a prophet among them. 11, we'll look at the commentaries after we finish verse 13. Vayehi kol yod'o me itmol shilshom, vayiru vehine im nevi'im niba, vayomer ha'am ish el re'ehu, ma ze haya leven kish, hagam Shaul banevi'im. So all those who had known him the day before and 2 days before, that is, so I think that's just a biblical phrase to say, all those who knew him before saw him, and here he is prophesying among the prophets, or acting like a prophet among the prophets. And all the people said one to another, what happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul also a prophet? So that's what the people are saying. 12, Vaya'an ish misham vayomer umi avihem al kain hayata lemashal hagam Shaul banevi'im. So I'm going to read the English translation here. And one of the same place answered and said, okay, so one person answered the question, who is this son of Kish, and how did Saul become a prophet? So this one person, an anonymous person, answers, and who is their father? Therefore it became a proverb. Is Saul also among the prophets? 13, Vayachal mehit nabot, vayavo habama. And when he finished prophesying or acting like the prophet and doing whatever prophets did, he came to the high place. Okay, so maybe that was just a one-time. It seems like it's a one-time or one moment that he was a prophet, like he wasn't permanently a prophet. Maybe it was just for one moment. So let's look on the bottom of 54, the commentary here. Another heart, the spirit of regal power, not the spirit of prophecy which came to him later. 55, only the third sign is recorded in full because of its effect upon the onlookers. To the hill, better to Giv'ah. All that knew him before time, this confirms that Saul had returned to his hometown. What is this that is come? As if to say, what has happened to him? Who would have thought that Saul had this in him? Who is their father? Were their families distinguished as prophets? Is the prophetic spirit an inherited attribute? Is Saul also among the prophets? The proverb was probably applied to any sudden change in a man's character. Came to the high place. He had met the prophets when they were on their way down from the high place, and when he parted from them, went up there himself to worship. Okay, let's look at ancient Israel. See what altar has.
By the way,
Go ahead.
I did answer
You
my
looked?
own question. It was God that told
Yeah.
Samuel to pick Saul. There was not really a discussion. It
Right.
was just that. So
Right. Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, so let's look at ancient Israel on 290, below the line 9, as he turned his back. The Hebrew shechem is also the word for shoulder, and so reminds us of Saul's regal stature, head and shoulders above all the people. God gave him another heart, and all these signs came to pass. These words are a kind of proleptic head note for the narrative report that follows, and it's not implied that the transformation and the signs occurred the very moment Saul turned to go. And they came there to Giv'ah. There is no report of the first of Samuel's predicted encounters with the 3 men bearing kids, bread, and wine. It is unclear whether this reflects merely a narrative ellipsis or whether this too is an unfulfilled prophecy. The report of the meeting with the 2 men who announced that the asses have been found is also omitted. In any case, the transformative meeting with the band of ecstatics is obviously the chief focus of the writer's attention. The Spirit of the Lord seized him. The same phrase, or a slight variant of it, is repeatedly used in the book of Judges to indicate the inception of the judge's enterprise as charismatic military leader. There is some overlap with Saul's taking on the kingship, which will also involve military leadership, but the report of ecstasy or prophesying is a new element, with its more radical implication that the new leader must become another man. Is Saul too among the prophets? This evidently proverbial question, its full origin scarcely remembered, is the perplexity that generates the ideological tale. The question seems to be proverbial of a case of extreme incongruity, like the English bull in a china shop. What on earth is a man like Saul doing among the prophets? The tale then comes to explain how the saying arose. But the ideological tale, together with its antithetical counterpart in chapter 19, figures significantly in the literary design of the Saul story. Even the characterizing theme of Saul's repeated exclusion from predictive knowledge is inscribed in the question, is Saul too among the prophets? The people ask their question about Saul in a line of poetry consisting of 2 parallel verses, like the way it's printed up above. The verse form explains why Saul is first referred to as son of Kish, because in poetry based on parallelism, it's a fixed procedure for treating proper names to use the given name in one verse set, and in lieu of a synonym, the patronymic in the other. Thus, the claim made by some scholars that son of Kish is derogatory has no basis. And the next page, 12, who is their father? The reference is obscure. The least convoluted explanation makes the prophets the antecedent of there. The meaning then would be that unlike Saul, whose father is Kish, a landholder and a man of substance, the ecstatics are a breed apart with no father anyone can name. The leader of a band of prophets was called idiomatically their father. The prevalent attitude toward such prophets was ambivalent. They were at once viewed as vehicles of a powerful and dangerous divine spirit and as crazies. See Hosea chapter 9. Okay, we can go on a little bit more. Let's see. 14. Vayomer Dod Shaul Elav Ve'el Na'aro An halachtem Vayomer levakesh et ha'atanot, v'nir'eh ki ayin, vanavo el Shmuel. Vayomer Dod Shaul, Hagida nali, ma amar lachem Shmuel. Vayomer Shaul el Dodo, Haged higid lanu, kinim nimtzeu ha'atonot, ve'et davar hamelucha lo higid lo, asher amar Shmuel. So, 14, the uncle of Saul said to him and to Saul's servant, "Where did you go? Like, where have you been?" And he said, "To find the donkeys." And we saw that we couldn't find them. So we came to Samuel. And Saul's uncle said, "Please tell me, what did Samuel say to you?" That is, the two of you. It's in plural. What did Samuel say to you, Saul, and you, servant of Saul? 16, and Saul said to his uncle, "He told us that the donkeys were found." And now in parentheses, and the matter of kingship he did not tell him, which Samuel told him. Then, in other words, like, you'd think the first thing he would say is, "Hey, I'm king of Israel. This is what happened to me." And he avoids that and just says, "Hey, look, I found the donkeys." Or Samuel helped me find the donkeys. That's kind of crazy. So 17, Vayatzek Shmuel et ha'am el Adonai hamitzpah. And Samuel called the people together to God at Mitzpah. 18, Vayomer el bnei Yisrael, Ko amar Adonai Elohei Yisrael, Anochi he'eleti et Yisrael mimitzrayim, va'atzil etchem miyad Mitzrayim, umiyad kol hamamlachot halochatzim etchem. So he said to the people of Israel, "This is what God, the God of Israel, said. I am the one who brought Israel out of Egypt and saved you from the hand of Egypt and from the hand of all the kingdoms who were oppressing you." 19, Va'atem hayom ma'astem et Elohechem, asher hu moshia lachem mikol ra'otechem v'tzarotechem, v'atomru lo, ki melech tasim aleinu, ve'ata hityatzvu lifnei Adonai, l'shiftechem ula'alfechem. And you today have rejected your God, who saved you from your evil ways and your troubles and your distresses. And you said to him, "Put a king over us, and now stand before God according to your tribes and according to your thousands," I would say according to your brigades. 20, Vayakrev Shmuel et kol shiftei Yisrael, vayilached shevet Binyamin. Samuel gathered together all the tribes of Israel, and he took the tribe of Benjamin. 21, Vayakrev et shevet Binyamin lamishpechotav, vatilached mishpachat hamatri, vayilached Shaul ben Kish, vayevakshuhu velo nimtza. And he brought close the tribe of Benjamin according to their families, and he set aside the family of Matri, and then he would look to set aside Saul, son of Kish, and he looked for him and could not find him. Vayishalu od ba'Adonai, hava od halom ish. Vayomer Adonai, hine hu nechba el hakelim. So they asked of God further, where is the man, or has the man come forward? And God said, here he is, hiding among the vessels, or it says here, among the baggage. Vayarutzu vayikahuhu misham vayatsev betoch ha'am vayigba mikol ha'am mishichmo vamala. So they ran and took him from there and stood him before the people, and he was taller from the rest of the people, from his shoulder and up. And 24, Vayomer Shmuel el kol ha'am, hareitem asher bachar bo Adonai, ki ein kamohu bechol ha'am, vayariu kol ha'am, vayomru yechi hamelech. And Samuel said to all the people, have you seen the person that God chose, that there is none like him among all the nation? And the people shouted and said, long live the king. Now this is bizarre. Saul was anointed by Samuel, clearly anointed, gave him signs. The signs were fulfilled. And Saul seems to reject this call to kingship, and even tells his uncle, hey, look, I found the donkeys. Didn't say anything. And then he's hiding among the baggage to kind of refuse to the attention. Okay, so let's see what the commentary says here. Back to page 55:14. Saul's uncle. It has been suggested that his name was Ner. Saul must have met him either at the high place or on his return home. 56, he told him not. Modesty and prudence have been suggested as the motives for his silence, but that the matter should be kept secret was implicit in Samuel's manner. Saul elected king. Samuel invokes a national assembly at Mitzpah so that there might be a public election of the king. Unto the Lord before the altar in Mitzpah. The people's desires are to be granted, but Samuel again reproaches them in God's name for their ingratitude and disloyalty to their heavenly king. Thousands, the first subdivisions of the tribe, and apparently synonymous with families or clans. And the commentary on 57 was taken that the selection was made by lot is clear from the Hebrew word here, which is the technical term for drawn by lot. Saul was taken. The description of the procedure of drawing lots is abridged. A father's house would be drawn from the family or clan, and the members of the house would be brought forward by man. The actual method which was used in this instance is a matter of dispute. Rashi holds that the names were placed in a box and one was drawn. Kimchi, on the other hand, suggests that the procedure was by the Urim and Tumim. That is, each tribe would come in turn by its representatives before the oracle and receive the answer yes or no. The enquiry in verse 22 was almost certainly by the Urim and Tumim, and the word further there implies that the method was identical with that used in the selection of Saul. Could not be found. Saul's modesty was not affected. His subsequent history makes it clear that self-doubt was an element in his character. Is there yet a man come hither? RV margin has, is the man yet come hither? There is none like him. Samuel is referring not to Saul's moral worth, but to his imposing stature and appearance, which were at once visible to all who beheld him. I have to stop here. We'll read altar next time on these verses. I'm sorry, but I do have to go. I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you next Friday. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Jonah.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks. Good to see everybody.